A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Paradox have just announced we're going to be getting our hands on the Stellaris 3.8 open beta and get to test out the new co-op mode as early as next week. On top of that, they've released some preliminary patch notes which give us a greater insight to the changes coming in 3.8. And let me just say, if tick selling was one of your favorite techniques, those days are now over. In this video, I'm going to break down all of the new information we've got, what is going to be changing, the improvements, bug fixes, and balance changes coming with patch 3.8. So without any further ado, let's dive in. Last week, the developers for Stellaris revealed the basic design of a cooperative multiplayer system that they are currently working on. If you haven't heard about the new co-op mode, I'll put a link to a video covering it down in the description below. But in summary, we are now going to get a system where multiple players can all play as the same empire. In fact, we're going to have a system where multiple empires can be played by multiple players. For example, we could have 3 people playing as the same empire, one looking after fleets, ships, and the war system, one just doing planetary management, and another player, twiddling his thumbs and talking about politics every now and then. Now, however, the developers are ready to announce that the cooperative open beta is looking like it will be starting sometime next week. Though at this time they cannot give a precise date, they are providing a list of preliminary patch notes that we are going to go through today. And in terms of the logistics of this open beta, like the 3.6 open beta, they intend to leave it up until the release of the next patch, that is 3.8. Any feedback will be collected in the threads until April the 30th. We should also stay tuned for more details once the developers can share them. This changelog that the devs have provided is only a small subset of what's going to be coming in 3.8. They wanted to keep the co-op changes relatively isolated in order to get better testing of the feature. What I believe this means is that the only reason we have an open beta at the moment for 3.8 is to test co-op mode, to make sure we don't have any desync issues, to make sure we don't have any out of sync issues, to make sure nothing like that goes wrong when the developers finally release 3.8. Now, I have been suggesting that we're going to be seeing a DLC, the main DLC for this year, coming with a 3.8 release. Last week I talked about that in the previous developer diary video, and I got a few comments from people who talked about the fact we are getting an open beta with 3.8, and they pointed to previous open betas we've had and the fact that whenever we've had an open beta, we have not had a DLC release coinciding with that open beta. We've had a DLC come in the next patch. And I think that's a very good point to make. However, what the developers are saying this week basically throws that entire idea into question. They have repeated time and again, everything that they're planning for 3.8 is not included in this changelog we're going to look at in a moment. That means that nothing they've said so far precludes the possibility we are getting a DLC with 3.8. I guess that we will just have to wait and see, but I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think I'm right? Do you think we're going to get the main Stellaris DLC expansion for 2023 coming with patch 3.8? The only feature this developer diary talks about is the cooperative mode feature, which will allow up to 5 players to play the same empire. More information can be found in last week's developer diary. Cooperative PvE can be initiated from the main menu. All players that hot join the hosted game will join the primary player's empire. This mode is intended for teaching new players or for lower intensity cooperative gameplay. The other mode is cooperative PvP. That can be allowed by the host of a standard multiplayer game. When enabled, empires can open themselves up to allow other players to help control their empire. We expect this game mode to be used for competitive team play. That means multiple people playing multiple empires. with many people on the same individual empire, but a variety of empires played by players. And I think this second mode is the mode that a lot of us are very excited for. Everything you can do in cooperative PvE, you can do in co-op PvP, but now the possibilities, the different types of games we can do, the content that can be made, I am very excited for this new game mode. It also, of course, would not be a Stellaris patch without a bunch of improvements, bug fixes, balance changes, AI changes, and more. Let's go through all of those now, starting with the improvements. And please, if you're enjoying this video, improve that like button. The developers have added unique textures for Mercury, Venus, Neptune, and Uranus for Sol System. They've also added unique textures for Earth and Mars when terraformed based off of available height map data. I hope this actually adds more realism to the Sol System, makes it look more like the actual images and data we have for these planets in real life, and I'm actually very excited about the terraforming changes. I hope that means we now have unique looks for Earth and Mars. Even if you terraform them, they will still look like the planets we know and probably love. They've added a new anomaly called the Orb. Quite interested to find out what that is, to be honest. I suspect and hope it has something to do with the Infinity Sphere. That's really a fun little thing, so maybe there's now an anomaly tied in with that as well. We'll just have to see. They've added a special solar system protected by the Lone Defender. Interesting stuff the Custodians are bringing us, more content basically, which is always a good thing. They've added a decision to clear the wreckage on a broken shackle starting planet in the event that they are conquered before they enact the memorial to the unshackled decision. This basically means if you as a player take over a broken shackles planet, possibly after an AI has already invaded it first, you will still be able to have the right buildings, get rid of the negative modifiers on that world, even if they haven't done it themselves, which means that that won't be a useless planet as it currently was. In patch 3.8, we're going to get improved accuracy of tooltips on the galaxy setting screen, and the devs have implemented experimental nested tooltip functionality, which we've already seen in previous dev diaries. The mind-wiped species from On the Shoulders of Giants will now have the forcefully devolved trait, and rightly too, I should add. The observation insight situation will now remember what approach you had when it last finished, so you won't have to keep changing it if you want to change your approach every time you get the observation insight situation. This is a massive quality of life improvement. Thank you developers. I am all for reducing the needless number of clicks we have to do. I guess the next thing is give us a way of queuing up multiple armies to be built at the same time. That would really help my finger from going click, clickety, click, click. But, you know, that's just, I guess, wishful thinking. Ground combat rework when? There is now a 1% chance that a pre-FTL civilization will spawn with the forcefully devolved trait. That's also pretty fun. I hope there's going to be an anomaly tied into that, possibly some sort of chain, and maybe it will point to a system somewhere where, or possibly a fallen empire or something like that, that came along and forcefully devolved them a long time in the past. What are we getting from balance and bug fix changes? Well, first off, they've done something rather dramatic in my opinion. They've lowered the base minor artifact storage capacity down to 2,000. It was at 3,000, now it's down to only 2. The facility of Archaeo studies will increase this by 1,000 up to the previous 3,000, or if you take the Archaeo Engineer's Ascension perk, your storage will go up to a maximum of 5,000. That is still a very limited total storage for minor artifacts, especially if you're trying to build large fleets with them in the mid to late game. I've spoken to some of the developers about this, and in essence, this was an intentional design decision. They don't want us running around with fleets full of artifact weaponry, which I have a lot of feelings on, and I intend to release a video talking about the changes to minor artifacts tomorrow, so look out for that one. A synthetically ascended empire should no longer refer to their own pops as having owners. A minor thematic change, but I think very helpful for players that like to RP. They've added a new description to the Broken Shackles Homecoming event if the world is a tomb world. Yeah, that is not the best thing to come home to, is, hi honey, I'm home, and oh look, the world's dead. Yeah, that did need a bit of a change. They've added missing gateway icons and tooltips to Tech Cloaking 1 and Tech Detection Array. That is level 1 cloaking and the Detection Array technology. They've added missing background for Iron Man game settings. Broken Shackles empires with the parliamentary system Civic will instead have unshackled politics fire 1 month after the game start instead of 1 year after the game start. To be honest, I don't really see why you'd take parliamentary system with Broken Shackles. Part of the benefit of being Broken Shackles is that you get all of the benefits of parliamentary system happening after the first year and staying in place for I think at least 10 years, possibly a bit longer. But it is good to see that they are not going to be penalising your empire for being Broken Shackles if you still want to take parliamentary system, which allows all of your factions to be formed after the first couple of months. They have corrected the Ancient Target Scrambler technology, not stating that it unlocks the Ancient Target Scrambler ship component. Yeah, that was, I think, obvious, but good to have in there if anyone was confused. Enclave should no longer keep offering you their services if you become a Fanatic Purifier. I thought they'd fixed this one already, but fair enough. They fixed multiplayer game browser listing full games even if not full is checked. They fixed a typo in the Cloud Snagged event, Federations 3.2010. They fixed an issue with an unlocalized version of MSI in the initial interaction between a Broken Shackles and Payback Empire. That basically means they were getting the wrong language coming through in some of the text interactions. They fixed an unlocalized string for the reanimated Tianki Matriarch. They fixed events relating to the out of warranty event chain not firing. Lots and lots of fixes here. Incorrect calculation for Offspring amenities, that's done. Liberation Wars not showing up for Payback Empires, that's done. Though I thought they had claimed to have already done that one, but fair enough. Materialist Culture Workers and Death Chroniclers not having the effects of the charismatic or repugnant traits, well, that's now gone apparently. And they fixed no possible option text in tooltip for an option in Starbase Sabotage events. Basically, lots and lots of bug fixes, though some of them I think are repeats. There are some interesting balance changes we're about to get into now, and some of them are very spicy, especially if you're into multiplayer and you like a little bit of min-maxing. There are more fixes. They fixed the status quo in a subsidiary war, subjugating the wrong empire. That is, I think, going to be quite an impactful change. Now it's actually going to work properly. On top of that, former pre-FTL worlds will no longer display the technological age of the former civilization during colonization. They've increased the size of the relic world tied to the moon base archaeology site from 26 all the way up to 30. This means it could be one of the largest planets in the game for making an Ecumenopolis world. And that's really quite a spicy change actually. Newly added Starbase modules and buildings are now possible targets for Sabotage Starbase, so we can finally sabotage detection arrays. They have prevented joining full multiplayer games, which makes sense. They've removed a double B from a Machine Become the Crisis event. I don't quite know what that means, I assume there was a typographical error. They've solved an exploit where a base price would constantly reset the next day if you sold the minimum amount. This means tick selling is now once and for all dead. And I think that's actually going to have quite an impact on competitive PvP. It used to be until now, if you, for instance, lost your main energy world, you could keep your economy afloat by every day selling the minimum amount of alloys and thus keeping the price at the base level, even though you're selling 25 alloys a day, 750 alloys per month. If you normally sold 750 alloys per month, you'd see the price of alloys drop dramatically. And speaking of competitive Stellaris, I think it's time that I can publicly announce I'm going to be running Montu's multiplayer deathmatch #1 in April. We're going to be having the final on Saturday the 29th of April with the prelims the weekend before. This, of course, will be a prize pool tournament with a cash prize given out. So if you're interested in joining, head on over to the Montu Plays Community Discord server. Sign-ups will be opening on Tuesday next week. The rules for this tournament are going to be a little bit different to the previous 3 we've done. There's going to be no diplomacy, there are going to be no peace timers, it will be a straight up cage match between 20 players in a tiny galaxy. It should be a pretty exciting, fast-paced tournament. If you'd also like to check out the rules, I'll post a link down in the description to this video, both for the rules and a link to my Discord community server. On top of that, if you'd like to contribute to the prize pool, if you'd like to sponsor this tournament in any way, please send me an email to montuplays@gmail.com. The prize pool for this tournament is directly given by the community for the community, and this tournament would not be happening without the support of the lovely people that donate to the prize pool. Just a couple of other bug fixes I want to highlight. The Separatist planet in Fear the Dark Origin will no longer nuke themselves into oblivion if you lose your capital to space fauna. Torpedo and frigate technology will also now require you to have research corvettes, so you can't get that technology without the corvette technology, which only the pre-FTL Origins or Civics start the game without. When it comes to the AI, we're going to be getting some fixes and improvements in the open beta too. Apparently, the AI has been requiring the wrong text to build some megastructures. That's a little bit of that's a funny mistake, but hopefully it's an easy fix and I'm glad it's been spotted. Assisting research on a planet will no longer block the AI from constructing orbital rings. And when it comes down to orbital rings, the AI can take into account planetary impact of orbital ring buildings when picking which one to build. This should provide quite an economic boost to the already improved economies of AI empires in the game. AI attitude updates now happen only monthly and on diplomatic actions, whereas before I think they could sometimes trigger in the middle of the month, causing the AI to break a treaty with you kind of in the middle of the month, which is a bit random. This is now closer, I believe, to how EU4 does it, which I think is a good thing. They've allowed the AI to build economically useful orbital ring buildings even if your planet does not have a matching designation. So not only will it take into account what is on the planet when it builds its ring building, but it won't be prevented from building the right building if the designation is not matching that building. So this is, again, good things for the AI to be doing as long as it's doing it correctly. AI budget requirements for orbital ring upgrades have been relaxed, meaning we should be seeing more orbital ring buildings on AI empires. Additionally, the AI will now build Offspring Outlooks, which is the Offspring building, starbase building that gives a system-wide improvement to all of the progenitor hive ships in the system. And additionally, the AI can now actually build cordyceptic reanimation facilities, which is a little bit scary. There are also a couple of minor UI changes and some modding changes coming as well. If you want to check out those, I'll put a link to the full dev diary with these patch notes in the description. Again, they want to stress that what we've just gone through is not everything that the devs are planning for 3.8. Honestly, if we don't get a DLC with 3.8, then I would be very, very surprised. They also want us to bear a few things in mind. The new co-op mode touches a lot of systems in Stellaris, and it's very likely that we will run into synchronization issues or other weirdness when we're playing the beta. That's the main reason they're pushing it out, so that it can be play tested by thousands and thousands of people for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours before the official release, so that by the time it releases officially, they can get it right. The dreaded out of syncs that are the bane of multiplayer Stellaris, yeah, that's the sort of thing that we're probably going to be getting a little bit when we use this new co-op mode. This system is still in active development, but the devs wanted to let people play with it now while there's still time to react to feedback and bugs that are found. Certain events, such as diplomacy with enclaves or other special entities, will also probably be behaving oddly during the beta, with responses going to the first player in the Empire rather than the one who initiated contact. Yeah, there's going to be, because of the way the game is coded, some weird interactions that are happening, and in essence, they'd like us to find those interactions as a community now rather than internally testing them. Whatever you think about this policy, whether or not you think they should have a bigger QA team doing this testing and not do open betas, whether you think open betas are great, I don't really care, to be honest. What I do care about is having a better game. So if the game gets better by publishing this open beta and giving us the chance to give feedback, to find bugs, to improve the game, then I am absolutely all for it. Next week, we're going to hear about some of the many changes coming in 3.8 that will not be included in this co-op open beta release. Of course, next week we'll also be getting our hands on the co-op open beta, so that's exciting as well. In this video, I talked quite a bit about the new co-op mode coming to Stellaris. If you'd like to know more about that, click the video on screen now.